Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Father-in-law is married to Natalie, who used to be mother-in-law's assistant. They had an affair, which I in no way condone, and he left mother-in-law. Natalie can be pretty petty and snarky, and she doesn't like mother-in-law, as she feels she is one of the few people who sees through the facade. In my opinion, they are just in love with the same man, and no, it isn't father-in-law. So, of course, they feud. Mother-in-law isn't my biggest fan. She doesn't think I'm good enough for her son, and I feel she took out some of her embarrassment about her divorce on me. Still, I try to include her as she is my husband's mom. Natalie is also included because despite what she has done, she is father-in-law's wife, and he paid for the wedding. This began at my bachelorette Disney trip. Mother-in-law mentioned wanting Starbucks, and Natalie appeared and was like, "Is it sad I still remember your order?" Mother-in-law stared at her, and she was like, "Here you go, princess." Later, she took out mother-in-law's ponytail as it had a bump and redid it, and was like, "Doesn't this bring back memories?" She was doing it in a really dramatic kind of mocking fashion, and honestly, my bridesmaids had a giggle. No one likes mother-in-law. For the rest of the trip, she attended to mother-in-law, but while clearly making a joke of it. The day of the wedding got kind of weird. Mother-in-law was rude to the makeup artist, a personal friend of mine. So Natalie said she could do her makeup, like she used to. Mother-in-law was sitting on the floor, and Natalie knelt. Someone told mother-in-law to sit in a chair, but Natalie was like, "No, this is where she thinks I belong, on my knees." Then she said, "Your Majesty." She was just clearly making fun of her. But hey, the makeup looked great. At the reception, she teased mother-in-law's boyfriend, who gave her a drink, and said no, mother-in-law likes the straw held up to her lips, so you know you're taking the piss out of her whole princess routine. I thought it was weird, but kind of comical. After the wedding, my husband's grandmother confronted me and asked why I allowed that to go on. I said mother-in-law is a grown woman and it wasn't my problem. Grandmother-in-law became furious and said we are terrible for laughing at her daughter and acting like this whole thing is a joke. I said I truthfully didn't care, as mother-in-law could have used her big girl words and stopped it. Grandmother-in-law said I knew mother-in-law couldn't, as that would be giving in and letting Natalie know it bothered her. At this point, I began laughing, which might make me an a-hole. I told grandmother-in-law that I didn't feel bad, and her daughter's life is kind of funny, to be honest. My husband even asked mother-in-law if she was upset, and she said no, she wouldn't expect anything more from us. Well, I think everyone sounds very immature and childish. Natalie is in the wrong for acting like that to a woman whose husband she took away. Mother-in-law for not standing up for herself and letting Natalie act like she did. And OP with her friends for laughing and encouraging it. I think that OP is right about one thing, that mother-in-law is an adult who should be handling her own interactions. I don't think OP should have stepped in, but definitely shouldn't have laughed about it. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Maya Marshmallow says, "Everyone sucks here. Oh boy. This whole situation is a mess, and everyone involved needs to take a step back and reevaluate their behavior. First off, Natalie's pettiness and constant jabs at mother-in-law are downright cruel. She may have her reasons for disliking mother-in-law, but that doesn't excuse her actions. You and your bridesmaids are also in the wrong for enabling and finding humor in Natalie's behavior. It's never okay to laugh at someone's expense, especially in a situation like this. You should have stepped in and put a stop to it. Mother-in-law doesn't sound like a saint either, but that doesn't mean she deserves to be treated this way. And grandmother-in-law has a point. You all could have been more sensitive to mother-in-law's feelings. Even if she didn't express her discomfort, it's pretty clear that Natalie's actions were meant to embarrass and belittle her. Lastly, your father-in-law should have intervened, as this whole mess is a result of his actions. He's the only one who created this tense dynamic between Natalie and mother-in-law, and he shouldn't have allowed Natalie to behave that way during the wedding. In conclusion, everyone involved needs to grow up and learn to treat each other with respect and empathy. It's time to put an end to the petty behavior and focus on building healthier relationships." Lavishness that says, "Everyone sucks here. You for allowing your husband's mother to be mocked mercilessly by the woman his dad had left her for. Even if she wasn't your husband's mother, as the bride, you should have stopped any and all aggression in your wedding party. Also, for thinking this aggression is comical. Your husband is an a-hole if he knew this was going on and did nothing to stop it. Your bridesmaids are a-holes for joining in. Natalie is an a-hole for acting like a jerk at her stepson's wedding. I get it, you don't like her, but it's a wedding. If you dislike her so much that you'd enjoy watching her constantly humiliated, you shouldn't have invited her. You did her no favors by inviting her and then allowing her to be constantly humiliated. Starry Night says, I really don't care how you feel about your mother-in-law, but Natalie is immature, and you and your bridesmaids are as well for thinking it was so funny. But I guess it will be funny when it happens to you, right? Good to know you get a sense of humor out of cheating partners and someone continuously bringing it up. I'm still so shook up with everything, so sorry for my rambling. My husband, Jake, and I have been married for 3 years, and from the beginning he was very close with his best friend's sister, Cindy, 18 female. Well, my husband would often talk about her and tell how he had seen her grow up throughout the years. Cindy is always very bubbly and seems very fond of Jake as well. I remember when we were dating, she would ask to come along our dates a lot. I never really said anything, as I like spending time with her as well. She was like a little sister to me. When we announced our engagement, she asked my husband to better not forget her, after being a married man, and to still hang out with her. Well, we got married, and I even made her my bridesmaid. Soon we moved to a different state and kind of lost contact. Now, Jake's best friend came to stay with us for some time, and Cindy came along as well. Now, the moment she saw us, the first thing she said was how hot my husband has gotten, and she was glad he didn't look like those boring married men. Then, throughout their stay, Cindy would just ignore my presence and will be way too close with Jake. I told Jake that it was looking a bit inappropriate and to ask Cindy to tone it down, but he said that Cindy was just a bit childish and is that way with everybody. Well, at their last day, we decided to host a dinner party for everybody. During the party, I was with Jake when Cindy came and told me, "Oh, I need to steal your husband for a while." And before I could say something, she grabbed Jake's hand and took him for playing games. I ignored it since it was their last day. But then throughout the dinner, she was getting way too close with Jake and would just drag him away whenever I would be around while giggling at me. When everybody sat for dinner, I sat beside Jake and Cindy came last. She then said, "Oh, there's no seat," and then just went and sat on my husband's lap. Everybody was surprised, and Jake said laughing, "Cindy, stop, you're acting like a kid. You are not a kid anymore." Cindy started laughing, saying it was a joke, and got up and sat on the other seat while giggling at me. Yeah, I was so angry with the disrespect, and with the fact that Jake was so cool with it. But I didn't want to say anything bad, so I excused myself, took my car, and went out. About 1 hour later, Jake called me asking where I was. I told him I'm going to my friend's house and I will come home after Cindy has left. I know what I did was terrible, but I was so angry at that time that if I had stayed there any longer, I would have probably started fighting or crying. I came the next day and Cindy and her family had left. Jake was very pissed and said I took things too far. I started crying and told him how everything made me feel. He said I was horrible to think such things about Cindy and that she was like his sister. I told him that I was not doubting his intentions, but I was hurt by how disrespectful Cindy's behavior was, and he was enabling her by not saying anything. He started saying that I sound ridiculous and couldn't even take a joke, referring to the sitting on lap incident. I said regardless, I don't want her in my house again. To top it off, Cindy sent a message saying that she was sorry about making me so insecure in myself, and that she would make sure to make me feel better, but that I should not have left, as it was pretty childish and kind of spoiled the mood. It felt so backhanded. I didn't reply anything to her. I just told my husband he needs to maintain a distance with Cindy. He asked if I was giving him an ultimatum. I said if he will go so far as to disregard and disrespect my feelings for Cindy. This really rubbed my husband the wrong way, and he said since I have so much disgusting thoughts in my mind and is giving him an ultimatum anyways, then he might as well leave because he cannot live with such an insecure person who has such disgusting thoughts about him. He packed a bag and left to his mother's place. I've tried apologizing numerous times, telling him how sorry I am for everything, but he is ignoring my texts and calls. Later, Cindy's brother texted me and called me a bunch of names to think like that about his sister, saying Jake should just leave me and a disgusting person like me deserves to be alone. I could not stop crying after that. I don't know how to fix this. Is there a way to even come back? Was I so wrong to deserve this? I don't know anymore. Sounds like those two were made for each other. I think OP needs to consider divorce. Cindy clearly wants to steal OP's husband, and he is either too stupid to realize this, or he wants the same thing. It's not really an ultimatum if all OP is doing is reminding her distracted husband that his vows are to OP and no one else. A spouse worth keeping is one who has your back and doesn't let anyone carry on in such a way as to make you feel uncomfortable. Tejiho says, not the a-hole. Your husband, and everyone else for that matter, is gaslighting you. You have every right to feel the way you do. She is 18. She is not a kid anymore. She knows fully what she's doing. Maybe your husband doesn't feel any attraction towards her, but he shouldn't dismiss your feelings like that. Him, his friend, and his friend's sister are the a-holes here. Serendipity says, not the a-hole, and why are you apologizing? They are all gaslighting you. He wants to leave. Fine, get a lawyer and start a divorce. Cheesy Mac Sauerkraut says, not the a-hole. Her behavior is inappropriate. She's not just a little girl with a crush anymore, so she needs to be treated accordingly. He's a married man, and he needs to be shutting down that type of behavior because she's not going to stop until he does. I understand that he probably still views her as a harmless kid, but your husband should be considering your feelings and boundaries. I, 43 male, discovered my wife's, 44 female, infidelity 8 years ago. My 2 kids were in primary school at the time, so I gave her another chance. It was somewhat genuine, as I was open to exploring if the marriage could be saved, and if it can't, my kids would be older and can take the brunt of divorce better. I also refused to budge on the 3rd kid that she wanted. I was not going to bring another kid into this marriage. To her credit, she has been an ideal wife since, worked on herself, but I never really forgave her. I just learned to be okay with status quo, until now. I had the NSTEMI about a year ago. That changed my perspective. I got my cholesterol and blood pressure level down, started taking my fitness seriously, and am now in the best shape of my life. That triggered self-improvement in other areas of my life, my style, my profession, etc. With that came the nagging feeling, I can get a better partner than my wife. I want to go into retirement with a woman who never betrayed me. So I'm leaving my wife. I was honest with her about the reason. I think I can do better than her. That's why I'm leaving her. I told her she is still pretty, which is somewhat true. But what I need is a person who never cheated on me, and she can't be that person. Since our kids are now older, her utility for me is decreasing with every passing day. There's no point delaying the inevitable. She is not happy is an understatement. She is accusing me of using her. She is also distressed about not having a 3rd kid. Thinks that I robbed her of a 3rd kid, which I find most outrageous. She was willing to bring another kid in a broken marriage that she broke. And even if I left her 8 years ago, she was going to jump on any guy to get a baby. Has she no consideration of the other 2 kids? I'm basically ignoring her attempts to goad me into arguments and marching forwards with divorce. I'm in the best position to divorce now. Kids are older. I can date easily. Am I the a-hole? She cheated and OP realized long ago he hated her, but she was useful to OP. So OP did use her. They both could have moved on and with new people by now. OP stayed with her for 8 years because he didn't think he could get any better. OP has a weird outlook on marriage. Beyond Marina says, that's some midlife crisis you've got there. I'm feeling the Udius says, I mean, you're both the a-holes. Yeah, you used her. You even admit as much when you say her utility for you is decreasing by the day. Corn Cheek says, both of you are a-holes. First, the cheating by her. Then you decided to keep a broken household, then used her until you were done with her. Should have divorced years ago and provided a happier house for the kids. I come from a ducked-up household, and kids see that stuff. I, 33 female, married my husband Alex, 35 male, 8 years ago. About 5 years ago, my mom died sometime after my 2nd child was born. I went into depression due to her death and postpartum. We stayed at my mom's house for about 6 months with my sister Sally, 28 female. During this time, Alex and Sally helped me out a lot and got me out of the dark phase. Things eventually got better, and we came back to our home. About 2 years ago, we had our anniversary, and we decided to celebrate at home. Sally came too. However, towards the end of the party, I saw Alex and Sally arguing, and then she abruptly left. When I asked him, he broke down and told me he had an affair with Sally. Basically, when I was in depression, He was so lonely and didn't know how to make things better. I became like a shell of a person, and he felt helpless seeing me like that. Then Sally came and comforted him. They would share their feelings to each other and became each other's emotional support. This led to an emotional affair that turned physical after Sally kissed him. However, after Sally asked him to divorce me, he realized his mistake and freaked out and just ghosted her. After the party, Sally was angry for him not leaving me and was accusing him of using her and throwing her away. He had a breakdown and kept on apologizing. I asked him to leave and that we would get a divorce. He left eventually, and we were separated for quite some time. I confronted Sally, and she started crying as well and wanted to explain, but I just cut the call and went no contact. However, during this time, my kids would cry for their dad, and my oldest would constantly ask for him. Also, since I'm working, it's almost impossible for me to take care of them alone at the same time. Also, divorce seemed a bad idea financially. Most importantly, Alex is a great dad, and I could not see my kids in pain, so I decided to not get divorced. In reality, I have not forgiven him and would leave after kids are grown up or if kids feel unhappy. For now, we are working efficiently as parents, and the kids are back to being normal and happy. A few days ago, Sally asked me to meet through a mutual friend. Upon meeting, she said she was sorry and that she was getting married. She asked me to forget the past and be a family again. She even asked me to be the bridesmaid. I honestly laughed at her face and left. Now, she says I'm being cruel since I accepted my husband but am punishing her, that I'm her only family and I should leave things in the past. I honestly don't want to do anything with her because of how greatly she hurt me. I adored her growing up, and she did that to me, but I don't know anymore. So am I the a-hole? Carolina Mama 2015 says, not the a-hole, but I still think you should have divorced your husband. You could have been co-parents in separate houses. That way, the kids could still see their dad. Good dad doesn't translate to a good husband. Anyway, to each their own. You don't owe your sister anything. But to change one thing you said that she did to you at the end is inaccurate. They both did that to you. Your husband is just as responsible as your sister is. Sophie Likes This says, wait, they had an affair for 3 whole years? Woman, I don't understand how you could keep him around. Think about the example you are setting for your kids, because even if they don't know yet, one day they will. Don't let them think forgiving an affair is acceptable, ever. Bonham 42 says, they both did it. They both should be cut out.